Hello everyone, thank you very much for coming to the webinar on accreditation, an introduction to accreditation. As I just said, we are recording it and we will share it afterwards. If you have any questions during the talk, please do put them in the chat or the Q&A box, or if you want to, you can email them directly to Frankie and she'll read them out at the end. Just be aware that if we might say your name on the recording. If you don't want us to do that, then let us know. Some questions have already been submitted and we will answer those at the end of the talk if they haven't been already. And we'll try to get through everybody's questions before we finish at 7 today. So we're here to talk about BIAZA accreditation. I'm going to talk for about 25-30 minutes, and then, as I say, you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions at the end. So first of all, why are we doing accreditation? And because we, as BIAZA, we're very proud of our members' house standards, and it's important that we are able to demonstrate to everybody, that's the public, policy decision makers and other partners, that we have total confidence that our members are meeting the standards that we have. And currently, we don't have any consistent method of demonstrating that. You know, when people apply, they have to state that they're meeting the standards. You have a mentor go and visit and agree that you are meeting those standards, but we don't really check up afterwards, and we don't really have as many opportunities to provide support to ensure people are able to meet the standards either. And so accreditation will provide us with the tools to ensure that people are meeting those standards and to ensure that our members can maximise their impact in terms of the key mission areas of BIAZA around conservation, education, research and animal welfare. So obviously there's an aspect of ensuring the BIAZA reputation, the brand is maintained, but we feel that accreditation is as much for the benefit of our members as it is for BIAZA as an organisation. Individually, it means you'll be able to demonstrate that you go above and beyond the minimum legal requirements. It will be a validation of your efforts and achievements, and it's a really good way for us to be able to shout about what you're doing, again, both within the sector but also externally as well. It's an opportunity for you to have some of your ways of working and given an independent review. And it will also mean that you can be confident that everybody within BIAZA is meeting those same standards. So you can be confident of the strength of BIAZA as a whole. And it should also enable us to give you better support, better, more tailored to support to what is important to you and what you want support on, and give you greater engagement both with the BIAZA Executive Office, but also other members. And through all of this, we'll be able to represent you better, and you'll also have a visible mark that you are a good zoo or aquarium. And this is becoming increasingly important, that we have this visible mark that people can easily see that you are going above and beyond. There are always going to be detractors, and having evidence of the good work that you do that's been validated by an external body is going to be really important for a zoo or aquarium's social licence to practice in the future. And you might have seen recently things like some travel industry bodies and people like EasyJet Holidays, for example, are now not selling tickets to animal attractions. And although at the moment that affects people abroad and not in the UK, there is the chance that they could also be internally, travel bodies might do the same thing, or for people that are coming to us from other countries, they might have similar things in their countries where their travel companies aren't selling tickets to zoos and aquariums. Having an accreditation and being able to say you're an accredited zoo is an easy way for travel companies to know good from bad, and it will be really more and more important over the years for us to be able to show that not only are you saying that you're meeting these standards, but you've got evidence of it, and we have more information to be able to share about what you are doing. So we've consulted quite widely on with our membership about bringing in accreditation. Development actually started 8 years ago, back in 2016. And there's been specific surveys around accreditation, and there were focus groups done in 2019, and with discussions with a variety of different members of different sizes. We've had discussions at the annual conference. It's been included in the annual questionnaire. It was included in the consultation on the strategy that we launched last year. And we've also talked about it extensively with our committees and working groups at regional meetings. And obviously BIAZA board members, they're all high, sort of senior managers, directors, CEOs of our membership as well. So we've done quite a lot of consultation. And additionally, we've encouraged members to contact us directly with any queries or concerns they may have over the course of this development. So we've really tried to ensure that there have been multiple opportunities for members to engage with this process and to ensure that we've taken the needs of all of our members of all sizes into account when we're developing the accreditation programme. And throughout all of these consultations, the vast majority of our members have been in favour of us bringing in an accreditation programme. So as I say, we started discussing it in 2016, and then it stopped over COVID, and then we really started working on it again back in 2022, developed a lot of the potential processes. We reviewed and updated some of our policies, and then we did some trials back in autumn of 2023, and we did a trial of a small member, an aquarium, and a larger EAZA member as well. And it's only after all of this had been thoroughly investigated and we'd had lots of discussions with the Board of Trustees that accreditation was actually approved in January of this year. So following that, we're moving quite quickly. The first screening visits will be carried out in July this year. It's going to be a 5-year cycle, and so the first year cycle to be completed by July 2029. And we've got 133 members at the moment. So in order to get through those 133 members, we'll be looking at doing 2 or 3 screening visits per month. And we're also going to start off by prioritising our non-EAZA members, as most EAZA members will have gone through the EAZA accreditation system at some point relatively recently. But other than that, it's on a random selection basis as to when you're going to get your visit. Obviously, if you have particular requests of when we do it, then we may be able to take those into account, but it's random at the moment. In terms of the cost of the accreditation, obviously, it is going to have some extra costs for people. We split these into 2 sections. There's the core costs, which are included in the annual fees, and that covers the salary of 1 FTE accreditation officer, the training for the screeners, and other resources like equipment that the accreditation officer will need, and various things like that. And then there will also be the cost of the screening visit, which will be a one-off cost once every 5 years. And that's to cover the essential costs for the screening team, so things like travel, accommodation and subsistence. And we're going to try and keep those costs to a minimum. For example, we won't be requiring members to take screening teams out for meals or anything like that. It's only to cover the essential costs in line with our expenses policy. So to give you some figures on that, the costs for 2024, the additional cost for the accreditation works out to be about 66p per 1,000 visitors, or £1.91 per 1,000 members. So it's not a huge cost to our individual members, and over 50% of our members, that extra increase for the accreditation will only have been, it will have been under around £65. The screening costs are obviously harder for us to estimate because it does depend to some extent on where you are, where our screeners are based, and how long your visit is going to be. But we will do everything we can to keep those as low as possible. As an example, for the 3 trials, they cost between £550 and £800. But we did have people coming from across different parts of the country for that. So, for example, someone went from Southampton up to Hull. Somebody else went from Colchester over to Dartmoor. So they were quite long journeys, and we're hoping that we'll keep the travel down because we'll have enough screeners close by to make those reduced costs. And we're also going to offer the option for people to pay their screening costs by instalments. So you won't necessarily have to pay that out in one lump sum. So in terms of what's included in the screening, it's all of our membership standards that are set out in our current policies. And these, I want to emphasise, these are our current policies. We've not implemented any completely new policies for accreditation. So they are all standards that you should be meeting, and they are all policies that you should already know about. And while we will be looking at things like animal welfare, we're not planning on repeating the zoo licence inspection. So we're not going to look at every single enclosure. We're not going to look at all your chopping boards. We're not going to do all of those sort of things. We will use your licence inspection reports to inform areas that we may want to look at, or to be able to rule out and say, no, that was fine on the inspection, so we don't need to look at those. And in terms of our BIAZA members, again, this is not about repeating the BIAZA accreditation screening. We'll use their reports to inform our screening, and wherever possible, use the information that you've provided for the BIAZA screening to complete our pre-screening. And the ideal will be that we'll combine the screening visit, so you have one joint BIAZA screening visit, which will reduce your costs and obviously the any disruption from having visits and so on. I'll talk about that a little bit more a bit later. In terms of the conservation, education and research policies, these are based to some extent on the size of your organisation, and we're going to be basing it on the capacity that you have in those areas. So as a rough guide, we haven't nailed these down completely, but you'll be considered either small, medium or large capacity, depending on the number of people that you have. So if you have less than 1 FTE in any of these areas, then you'll be small. If you've got more than 2, you'd be large. And that's relevant to the policies, and the policies will show you what you need to have for those different areas if you've got that level of capacity. Obviously, there will be some relation to your size. If Chester only had half FTE on conservation, we might think that that's not reasonable, but to some extent it will, mostly it will be based on the capacity that you actually have, rather than some kind of algorithm working out what your overall size is. So for the screening process itself, it has 4 aspects to it. There's a pre-screening questionnaire, there's the screening visit itself, and then there'll be a report, and then finally the decision. So in terms of the pre-screening questionnaire, this will be sent out to members at least 3 months before the screening visit happens, and it must be returned at least 1 month before the visit occurs. It is an online questionnaire. We will have hard copies, Word documents that you can fill in instead on request. But the ideal is for you to do it all online. It enables you to upload all of the documents through this as well. You'll be able to save it and return to it, so you don't need to do it all in one go. And I just want to reassure you that any information that's provided as part of your pre-screening questionnaire is securely stored and only shared with the accreditation officer and other relevant BIAZA executive staff, and then the actual people who are doing the screening itself. So it's all completely confidential. And once we've got the pre-screening information in from you, the accreditation officer will go through, check all the necessary information has been provided, and liaise with you if any additional information is needed. The pre-screening questionnaire is already available as a Word document for you to have a look at online. All of the documents are on in the members area. We have an accreditation section, and this is available there for people to look at, so you can have a look at it before your screening comes up, so you'll know what's being required. And then the screening visit itself, there will be a screening team of 3 people, and this will be 2 screeners who are volunteers from within the BIAZA community, and then the rapporteur, which is one of the accreditation officers. There may be times when we send more than 3 people for training or something, but you will only ever be charged for the expenses for 3 people. You will also have the opportunity to veto screeners. if there's a conflict of interest or something. But that will only be, you know, there'll have to be a good reason for a vetoing of a screener, but you do get that opportunity. The aim is that we'll be able to do the majority of the screening visits in one day, because we'll have got so much information with the pre-screening. We'll be able to make the screening visit itself really focused. It'll probably be a long day for most people, starting at like 9 and finishing at around 5. But as I say, hopefully we're trying to get everybody, some people might not take that long, but get as many done in one day as possible. But if you are a very large organisation that's not BIAZA, then it's possible that it would be 2 days. And then you'll need your key staff available to talk to the screening team during the day. And the screening team will also need somewhere to have 1 or 2 short periods for discussions without the staff members there. And the aim for accreditation is for this to be really supportive. We want it to be open and transparent discussion. We want it to be about knowledge sharing. It is not about catching you out. We are not looking for areas where you're not meeting the standards. We really want this to be supportive, both in terms of giving you more support. Also, the screeners will hopefully learn something from different members that they go to. And if there are areas where policies aren't quite being met, it's so that we can provide you with the support to come up to those levels. As a sort of indication of what we'll be expecting on the day, so there will be a tour of the site, but we won't expect to see absolutely every enclosure, all of the housing or anything like that. We will want to see things like walk through animal enclosures or enclosures that allow visitors to have close contact with animals. We'll probably want some examples of what you do in any demonstrations that you may have. Also look at the housing for animals in close contact. So if they're used in outreach or handling sessions or so on. And animal training areas is also another area that we'll really want to look at. Also things like conservation education facilities, if you've got any other conservation related facilities, and if you've got any research facilities. And we'll hopefully be able to pick out from the pre-screening information anything that we particularly want to look at. We also might ask for some additional paperwork, and this will have been chosen based on the pre-screening. And we will provide a list at the beginning of the day saying we'd like to look at this additional paperwork, give it to you then, and then later on in the day, after you've had time to dig some of it out, take a look at it then. And this will be things like additional information about animal transfers, just to demonstrate that the due diligence has been undertaken, maybe some examples of euthanasia, some of your welfare assessments and action plans, for example, just so you don't have to provide everything in pre-screening, but we have a couple of selected extra bits of paperwork that we'll want to look at. And then there'll be discussion of all of the different policies to a greater or lesser extent, again, based on some of the answers that you gave in the pre-screening. As I said, there will be some time when the screeners and the accreditation officer will want a little bit of time to themselves just to discuss what's going on, see if they need to look at anything other than that, but the majority of the day you'll be together. And then the screening team will give you feedback on the day, but you won't be told the outcome at that time, although hopefully it will be fairly obvious from how the day's gone, from the feedback that's been given, whether there is anything that that they have any concerns about, or whether there's any other recommendations that they might be able to give as part of the report. So the report itself, the screeners, again, they'll have an online questionnaire to fill in. And again, this is something that we can give in hard copies should people need it. They will have 2 weeks to complete the questionnaire. In all of the questions and all of the questionnaires, the pre-screening questionnaire and this one, it all relates directly to each policy. And in the screener questionnaire, it also has notes on which bits of the policy they're looking at or which bits of the pre-screening questionnaire they're looking at. And again, this screener questionnaire is available for you to see beforehand, so it shouldn't come as a surprise. We're not trying to keep it hidden. You'll be able to see all of the questions that they're being asked to have a look at and what they're going to look through. So they have 2 weeks to complete the questionnaire after the visit has occurred. And then the accreditation officer will collate all of that information and combine it into one report. And then that will be sent to the screeners for them to read through, make sure that they agree with it, add any final comments. And they'll also agree any areas of major or minor concerns and any proposals for addressing those concerns as appropriate. So we're looking at things in terms of major and minor concerns. So we've used the research policy as an example here. So in the research policy, there are lots of musts and shoulds. And some of the things that have been pulled out by the committee as being of minor concern would be if you're not publishing or disseminating your research findings, if you're not providing CPD or training for research staff, or for the larger zoos, if they're not assisting smaller members of research or supporting external researchers where it's practical and appropriate. So those would be marked down as minor concerns. And then from the same policy, some examples of major concerns would be things like not telling us, not providing an annual report of your research activity, not doing research that's commensurate with your size and staffing level, not having a named number of staff, and not having an ethical review process. And for each of the policies, our committees are going through and assigning what they think are major and minor concerns. Again, those will be available for everybody to see as well. So that comes into whether it's a major or minor concern, comes into the decision that will be given. So for the first 6 months, all accreditation screening reports will go to the Membership and Licensing Committee. But after that, it's going to be depending on, and that's basically just to make sure that we've got the processes right, that we are addressing the right sort of things, that what's being considered minor concerns are minor concerns and so on. So after the first 6 months, if you have less than 5 minor concerns, then there'll be a proposal for addressing those concerns shared with the Membership and Licensing Committee, and the recommendation will be that you will be accredited. There will be some timescales around addressing those concerns, but you'll get BIAZA accreditation without me having to go through any further scrutiny by MLC. But if there are more than 5 minor, or there are any major concerns, then the full report will go to the Membership and Licensing Committee, and they will decide what the next steps will be in line with our current sanctions policy. And the sanctions that are available to us are just a warning under mentorship. So you're giving support to meet the requirements. You could be suspended or you could be terminated, but I think it would be have to be something fairly serious for us to go straight for something like a termination. And depending on what sanction is recommended, if there is one, again, there will be provided a timescale to address those concerns, and then we'd go back and do a repeat screening visit. But I just want to reiterate again, as I said before, we really want this to be a supportive process, and we will provide support for members to meet those standards where we can, including mentoring, advice from committees and working groups, additional resources, advice from the BIAZA Executive Office. We will really hoping that this is going to be, as I say, it's going to be a way of making sure that we've all got a similar level of understanding, and we've all got the tools that you need in order to meet our standards. However, if we go through all of this and somebody fails for a second time, then their membership will be terminated. And there will be the ability to appeal these decisions, both in terms of the original sanction, if there is one, but also in terms of termination, and that will be through our usual sanctions policy as well. But as I say, hopefully we won't get there, and it will be a very supportive process for everybody. So in terms of our joint BIAZA and EAZA members, as I said before, we're going to aim for joint visits wherever possible. And the idea would be that your EAZA in-country screener would also be a BIAZA screener. And so you wouldn't need any extra people to come along. We'd rely on them to do the reporting and so on. If it's not possible to have a joint visit, we will focus on the areas where BIAZA and EAZA standards differ. And we'll use the BIAZA report, if that's happened within the last 5 years, with your permission, obviously, to fill out as much as we can for what we need, and only screen the areas that are not covered in the report or that are highlighted from the pre-screening or during the visit. So, as I said before, the intention here is not to duplicate the zoo licence visit. It's not to duplicate the BIAZA visit. It's to focus on BIAZA standards. In terms of new members, they will still need to undergo a period of provisional membership. So at the current time, someone puts in an application, they have to have had 2 sponsors who go and visit, and then they get a mentor who works with them until that mentor is assured that they are meeting the BIAZA standards, and then they're recommended for full membership. That will all still happen. It's just that then when the mentor is satisfied they're ready, they will have to pass accreditation before they become a full member. So as I said, we did some trials, and I just wanted to give you a few quotes. We didn't have, it seems like I've just cherry picked the good ones here, but we didn't have any really negative quotes from the trials. There was lots of feedback, really good feedback about tweaking the questionnaires and what we could do on the screening visits. But on the whole, of the 3 organisations that we went to see, so we went to Dartmoor Zoo, we went to the Deep Aquarium, and we did Marwell Zoo, they all found it a really useful experience. They found there was really honest feedback, and enjoyed the day as much as they could. So hopefully that will give you some indication that this is what we're looking for. We're looking for that positive, supportive experience rather than anything else. So in terms of screeners, as you've hopefully seen, we have been putting out calls for expressions of interest for people to become screeners, and we're going to be doing that as a rolling recruitment, so people can volunteer at any time to become a screener. So far, we've had nearly 50 people express interest. We'd like more. We'd particularly like more based in the North, Scotland or Ireland, and also more with specialist experience, such as aquariums or safari parks or bird parks. It'd be great to get a few more people in with those areas. In order to be a screener, you have to have been employed. You have to be employed by a BIAZA member or be a professional associate member. You have to have had more than 5 years experience in a zoo or aquarium setting, and management experience in one of the relevant areas. So animal welfare, conservation, research, keepers, senior keepers and so on. So that's what we're looking for. The criteria is on the website as well, and there will be a link to that sent out too. So for those screeners that do come to do screening visits, sorry, I should also have said we are envisaging that it will be, you will do 1 or possibly 2 screening visits in a year. So we're not expecting people to do lots of visits in each year. And depending obviously on the number of people we get, and especially for different specialities, it's possible you do 2, but for most people it would be 1. In order to be a screener, they have to sign a code of conduct, and this includes a confidentiality clause. So all of the information that they receive as part of the screening team has to be treated completely confidentially, and they can't retain any of that information once the report's been finalised. And they have to disclose any real or perceived conflicts of interest there may be with the zoos that they're that they're being asked to visit. And if we have that up front, then it makes it easier for us to select people for different visits. All screeners will go through training. The first thing they'll have to do is read the policies before the training, and then there will be a training course online, predominantly online, and there will be a quiz at the end to ensure that people have read and understood the policies and understood the training. And this is just to ensure everybody knows the BIAZA policies. It's so that they're provided with guidance from the committees and working groups on what they're looking for, so that we have a good, consistent screening across the base. And if you don't do a screening in a year, or or there's a gap, well, or for every year, people will need to do refresher training to ensure that they're still up to date with the policies and they still know what they're doing. So we expect, in terms of the time it will take for people, except not with the training, but with the visits, we're probably looking at around 3 days in total per screening to read the papers, do the report, do the visit, and obviously that might change depending on how far people have to travel for the screening visits, but we're kind of try and keep that to a minimum as well. So I've mentioned the accreditation officers. These are going to be people who are employed by the BIAZA Executive Office. They will be the main point of contact for the screeners and the screened at all stages, right from the very beginning of booking in the date and sending out the information through to the report and the decision being given. They'll check the pre-screening documentation, coordinate with members and screeners all the way through, attend the visits as the rapporteur, attend the MLC meetings, draft the reports, and as I say, communicate the results to the members. And they are there to ensure consistency of application of policies and consistency across the screening visits across different members. And also to keep the screeners in line to make sure that they're not veering into zoo license or BIAZA or whatever. And they'll also be able to provide advice and comments to both the screeners and those being screened, both in the run-up to the visit, during the visit, and afterwards as well. So we're going to have 2 accreditation officers for whom this will make up about 60 to 70% of their role. I can announce now that Frankie will be one of our accreditation officers, and we have just recently appointed a new member of the team who will be announced very soon, but they will be in place in June before any of the visits start. So they'll be the people that are having the most contact with our members that are being accredited, but also with the screeners. In terms of what we're doing about communications internally, we'll keep you updated at all stages of the process. We've been putting information out in bite size and member emails, and we'll continue to do that, and we'll update with how things are going at various stages through the cycle as well. And we're always happy to hear from our members and find out more about what you think about it. Externally, we're going to be working with Navigate Agency, who are a marketing and communications partner that we've just got. They're one of our corporate members as well. And we're going to be raising the profile of BIAZA through social media to start off with, to raise the public profile of BIAZA. Through things through its social media, strategic articles for tourism organisations and things like that. And then we're going to launch, once we've built that a little bit, we're going to launch the identity of accreditation and explain its value and why visitors should choose accredited zoos. So we are going to be doing quite a big piece about that external communication, and hopefully this should have a real positive impact for our members in terms of the public, tourism organisations and so on, knowing more about accreditation and why it is a good thing to go to an accredited zoo and why it's a good thing that your zoo or aquarium is accredited. And when we come to that, we will be providing media packs for our members to use. And in the initial phases, we'll work with our members that are undergoing accreditation early to determine how best we can share that news without disadvantaging those that are going through the process later in the cycle. So there will be more coming on that over the coming months and years, possibly. So that is a very quick run through of the accreditation process and the reasons behind it. As I mentioned, we've got this accreditation page on the members area of our website, and that has all of the information that we've talked about. So the screen and role description, the pre-screening questionnaire, the screeners questionnaire, the code of conduct, and also an accreditation handbook, which will give you all of the information that I've given you here as well, for you to look at any time. There's also FAQs on that page as well. And there's links to all the documents, as I said, that I've talked about here. And we will add more resources as we develop them to this page so that everything is available for you. And as I say, we want everything to be as open and transparent, as supportive as possible. So we will be putting everything up there. And if at any time you have any questions at all, whether you're coming up for your screening soon or whether it's not going to happen for a few years, please do not hesitate to contact us in the office. Contact me or Frankie at the moment, and we will do our best to help you. And then from June, Kerrian will be back from maternity leave and will be leading a bit more on this, and our other accreditation officer will be on post. But please do get in contact with us at any time if you have any questions or comments about accreditation. Thank you. So I will stop sharing my screen now, and then we'll see if we've got any questions. I should have said at the beginning, sorry, that you are all muted at the moment, but if you do have a burning question, if you put your hand up, we can unmute you for you to ask your question as well. But otherwise, Frankie, have you got any that have come through?
So we've had one emailed in. Amidst the changing standards, the hardship post-pandemic has brought to the majority of us and the pressure of more paperwork, small zoos are struggling more than ever. Why does BIAZA think now is the correct time to bring out accreditation?
It's a fair comment. Things have been tough for the past few years, but as I said, we have been talking about this for 8 years now, and there will never be a perfect time to bring this in. In terms of the paperwork, it's all stuff that you should have already, so we're not asking you to go to do more. There is time, obviously, filling out the questionnaires and stuff, but we're really hoping it's not going to be a huge extra burden. And as I said at the beginning, I think, and the board have agreed, that this is something we really need to do now. We need to do everything in our power to show that we are going above and beyond, that zoos and aquariums are doing the things like conservation, like education, like research, that we take our responsibilities seriously. And so it's been after much discussion that we've decided that this is now the time to do it, and we are, as I say, trying to keep the costs as low as possible to try and make sure that that doesn't have a negative impact on our members.
Thank you. Next question. Why repeat screening? Why not submission of evidence that concern has been corrected?
To some extent, if it is just updating a policy or something, then we will accept that. But if it's something that we actually need to see to be able to be shown that it's happened, then yes, then we would want to go back. But you're right, I should have mentioned that if it is just something like updating a policy, then we would just accept that being emailed through to us. We wouldn't need to go back and visit just for that.
Will there be external comms from the BIAZA office regarding the results of the accreditations, positive or negative?
As I said, we're still developing our external comms. I don't imagine we will be doing individual comms on each member. And obviously we will have to have very careful thoughts about what we do if we do end up having to lose some members because of this. But we're working through that comms plan, and when we know what that is, we will share that information with our members. But I can't imagine that we'll do external comms about every single member that goes through it, but we might do a sort of 6 monthly or yearly update going, all of these members have become accredited in the last 12 months. But as I say, we'll share more information of our external comms plans when we've got it.
Will you be pre-planning when collections are due to be screened, e.g. have a 5-year plan that is released?
So I don't think we can quite do 5 years because quite a lot will change in that time. We are trying to get things booked up as early as possible. So we promise to give at least 3 months notice of when they'll be. And there will be, although there will be some flexibility in when your screening will be. So that could affect if we gave out a long-term plan, then a lot could change in that time. So we won't be doing that. We hadn't planned on making it public as to who's being visited when, but the people that are being visited will have at least 3 months and hopefully longer to know when their screening visits are coming.
Do we get the chance to give feedback on the accreditation process?
Absolutely. We really, really want people's feedback on the accreditation process. Particularly initially, it's something new for all of us. We We know that it's not going to be perfect straight away. We know that things will need to be refined and revised as we go along, and there will be the opportunity for verbal feedback, but also we'll be asking our members that go through the accreditation process to give us their feedback more formally if they want to as well. So absolutely, we really want the feedback because we want to make this the best it can be and the easiest it can be for our members and the most useful to our members, because as I said, we really want this to be a supportive and useful process for the members as well.
What if we are opening a new facility or have improvements coming in a month's time?
So assuming you mean if you have your visit booked in for July and you're opening something in August, I mean, as I say, there's a little bit of flexibility around when your visit will be, but I'm assuming if you've got something opening up that quickly, you'll have everything in place hopefully already, and they'll be able to take that into account. So if it's that you've got an old habitat maybe that you're moving animals over into a newer one, or you're making improvements, then you can just discuss that on the day with the screeners. It wouldn't be that we would necessarily mark you down for that if we knew that the changes were coming.
Do we need to involve our vets?
That is completely up to you. If you have your staff that you feel are happy to answer all of the questions that may be coming, and as I say, you can look at the screening questionnaires beforehand, then we're not requiring the vets to be there, no.
How will this work given that we don't yet know the new zoo standards?
That's a good question as well. We don't have the final version of the zoo standards, but we have a fairly good idea from the consultations that came out about what's in the standards, and we don't feel that anything that we have is duplicating that, and we're still fairly confident that our policies are, where necessary, going above and beyond those standards. If there are drastic changes in the standards, then we may be reviewing our policies, which we do at a regular basis anyway, but we don't feel that should have a negative impact at the moment.
Can we choose when we get accredited?
As I said, there will be some flexibility in it, but not you won't be able to, everyone won't be able to just say we want ours doing in July 2029. We will need to, it's on a random basis. If you do have something big coming up, or if you know you've got your zoo license inspection and you want it close to that because then you'll have all the paperwork, or you want it a long time away from that because you don't want the stress of both close together, then get in contact and we can see if we can accommodate those. But to some extent, we will have to have a fairly tight schedule to ensure that we get through all 133 members in the 5 years. So there will be a bit of flexibility, and if there are, there are genuinely good reasons why you can't do the screening visit at the time when we're suggesting it, then we are open to discussions around that.
How will you choose which enclosures are being looked at and which aren't?
As I said during the talk, we'll want to look more often at things like animals that are being used for close contact, or if there are areas where there's training being done, that kind of thing we're more likely to look at. We might look at the previous inspection reports to see if there was anything commented in those that we might want to have a look at. But apart from that, it will be to some extent up to the screeners on the day to determine which enclosures they specifically want to go and look at.
How are you making sure it's not the same old people doing the screenings?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to say that we're welcome to anybody that fits the criteria to become the screeners. We have had a good range of individuals from across, I think, as I said, we've had nearly 50 people put forward expressions of interest, and I think I looked at it the other day, I think that's from 36 different members. So we've got a good range of people from different members, and as I say, for most people they'll only be doing one screening a year, so it won't be the same people doing lots and lots of screenings, and we hope to have that good mix of people doing the screeners that will all have had the same training, so they should have the same consistency across there. And as I said, we really want to get, if possible, sort of more local screeners to where people are based as well. So yeah, so there should be quite a good range of people doing the screening.
What are you doing to make sure the costs are fair?
So as I said, the core costs are part of your annual membership fee, which is based on your visitor numbers. So that is how we've made that as fair as we can, because then your fees are in accordance with the level of income you're getting in from that area. In terms of the screener costs, that's a little bit more tricky, but we will be doing everything to ensure that where we can, where there's no conflict of interest, we're getting local screeners to come. So we're keeping the costs down as much as possible there as well.
Does this now mean that current or new provisional members may now have to wait up to 5 years before they have the opportunity to become full members / accredited?
No, definitely not. We will be trying to, when the mentors say that they are ready to become full members, we'll try and slot them into the programme within a few months. So we're certainly not thinking that they'll have to wait a long time to become accredited and full members.
Will there be a grace period for members to update paperwork and put in place necessary changes if and when BIAZA makes changes to its policies?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, depending on how big the changes are, there'll definitely be transition periods where if we've just changed the policy and then you've got your screening the next week, we're not going to expect you to meet the new policies. There will be that transition period to come up to the new ones.
I think that's all the questions.
Great, thank you.
See any others?
Does anybody else have any questions? Anyone want to raise their hand or pop something quickly in the chat?
Extra one. There's currently no BIAZA guidance on ethical review and policies, but it is in the screening. I understand this is coming. Can you confirm a time frame for this?
It is coming. I can't confirm a time frame. Frankie, have you been talking to the committee about this?
Yeah, I'm hoping in the next 2 to 3 months, pending sign off. So it should be ready by July. Fingers crossed.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much to all of you for attending this evening and giving up your time on a Monday afternoon, early evening. As I said, this will be recorded and we will be sharing it. So we'll be sending the link to everybody that signed up to the webinar, and we'll also, I imagine, put it in bite size, and we'll put it on the accreditation page in the members area. And as I said, just very much, if you've got any questions, any queries, any concerns, please do get in touch with us. We're always happy to chat it through with anybody. And yeah, we started booking in I think we've got the first 6 booked in already for July and August and the beginning of September. So we will give people as much notice as possible for when their screening visits are coming. But as I say, I hope you appreciate the fact that we are really trying to make this a really supportive process, and yeah, we definitely welcome your feedback at any stage as well. So thank you very much, everybody.